Hey there, it's Melissa Brunetti, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Karma podcast.
Hey there, Karma crew. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Mind Your Own Karma, the Adoption Chronicles. Today, I have Anita Momodu on the show today. She is an adoptive parent and is a passionate advocate for redefining parenthood, self-care, and mental health. As the owner of Udomom, she dedicates herself to supporting families during their journey to and through parenthood. Anita cultivates conversations around topics often silenced. Her mantra, I am human, reflects her belief in embracing imperfection and self-compassion. Follow her journey as she travels the world, gathering communities, uplifting experiences, and demolishing shame. Here is my interview with Anita. So we are welcoming Anita to the show today. Hi, Anita.
Hi.
I am so glad to have you on the show. I'm always wanting to get more adoptive parents on the show. I think we need to get that perspective in here as well. For the first year I did this podcast, it was mainly adoptees. And as I listened to more and more adoptee stories, I felt like we weren't getting the whole picture, and my job and purpose in this podcast is to really educate the world on adoption. And I feel like we can't do that unless we get the entire story. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with your story. Why did you decide to adopt?
Well, I was one of those kids who, when I was younger, everybody be watching cartoons and stuff, but I'll be watching adoption stories on
Really?
TLC, and everybody would be looking at me like, "What are you doing?" But ever since I was younger, everybody's like, "Oh, I want to have this many kids and things like that." I was like, "I just want to adopt. I don't even want to
Wow.
have my own. I just want to adopt." So, moving forward to 2019, I was meeting up with a friend and they were like, "Hey, do you want a baby?" I'm like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, one of my son's friends, they are pregnant right now and they're unable to keep the baby, but they don't want to put the baby in the foster care system. They want the baby to be adopted." Mind you, this friend didn't know that I wanted to adopt ever.
Oh, wow.
So it was real interesting meeting my son's birth parents and hearing their story as to why they were deciding to put him up for adoption and different things like that. So after that conversation with them, my husband and I at that time, we were like, okay, yes. I mean, we gave them every option. We were like, we could be godparents and help you in any other way so you can keep your
Mm.
child and help you. And they're like, no, we feel like this will be the best option for him. And so that's how we ended up adopting my son.
So is this considered an open adoption then? Are they included in your son's life?
So it is an open adoption. I send pictures to them after he turned 1. That was the first time I saw them again after his birth. And I just sat there the entire first year of his life and just all the memories I was taking. I created a scrapbook.
Oh,
And I was like, I know they didn't ask for this, but whenever I see them again, I want to at least give it to them so they can at least feel like they were included and saw all
yeah.
the things in his first year of life. I send pictures every now and then when he does different little things. I'm like, oh, maybe they'll like to see this. So we've done those kind of things, but we haven't physically met yet. We've tried a few times, but it just didn't work out. But it is
Yeah.
open. I send pictures, let them know updates and things like that.
How old is he now?
He will be 5, May 26th.
Okay. So he hasn't actually met them in person
No,
or talked to him on the phone or anything like that.
no, he has not.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have pictures of his parents or anything to like show him or tell him about or?
Yeah, so like I send them pictures, they send me pictures of his
Okay.
siblings, and I show him, I'm like, hey, this is your sister, this is your brother. And for him to see, I don't think he kind of understands it because
Hmm.
I have another child, so he has
Yeah.
a younger sister. So he'll be like, Harper's my sister. I'm like, yeah, but here are your other sisters as well. So he hasn't really, I don't think he has grasped it,
Hmm.
but I have told him he does
Yeah. Good.
understand.
Yeah.
Me and my son, we don't have the same skin complexion. We don't look exactly the same at all. So it's a thing of, I know as he gets older and sees it that, oh, wait, we really don't look the same, but you are my mom, but what's going on? So,
Mm-hmm.
it's conversations we've had. I've told him his story multiple times. I even have a children's book that is his exact story that I
Wow.
read to him every night of, hey, here's your story. This is what happened. And letting him know that you weren't born in my tummy, you were born in my heart. And that doesn't make it any different.
Okay. And Harper, is she adopted as well, or?
No, I had
Okay.
Harper 16 months after my son was born.
And then his biological sisters, were they born after him then?
No, so he has siblings that are older and younger than him.
Mm. Do you feel comfortable sharing with why they chose at that time to put him up for adoption and not any of the other children?
So I don't want to like put words into their own mouth, but at least from what I was told at that time, they were supposed to be transitioning to a different state and it was going to be a new job and different things like that. And they already had a baby who is a year and a few days older than my son.
Mm,
And she just knew that it was going to be too much for her. And she just was like, hey, we're moving to a new state, this new thing. I'm gonna have two under two plus the older kids. It's gonna be a lot for me. I don't think I'll be able to do what
hmm.
I need to do for this child, but I want to give them the best opportunity I can.
Yeah. Okay. And then you told me that your family kind of wouldn't acknowledge you as a parent because you had adopted. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I come from an African background, and so we're always taught like, once you get married, when you're having kids, we're waiting for your children. Where are your children? Where are your children? So then when I came and said, hey, I'm about to adopt, everybody looked at me like, why? And then the question was, but why doesn't the family want the baby either? So it was just this thing of why do you want to go into this? Why do you want to change everything you have going on in your life currently to take in this child that's not your child? And then when he did come and everybody saw him and loved him, he's like this bright sunshine. Anybody meets him, they just smile. He just brightens everybody's day. But it will be a thing, and my grandmother be like, "So when are you having a child of your own?" I'm like, "But I do have a child of my own." No, that's not what I'm talking about. When are you going to have a child of your own? When are you going to give birth? When are you going to do all these other things? And I was like, it doesn't, regardless if I gave birth or the process that I went through in order to get my son, there's no difference. The love is still the same. He's still my child. He has all the rights of my own natural child. He just wasn't growing in my own stomach. He just grew in my heart.
Yeah. So did your family treat him any different, do you think, or no?
No, I don't I don't think anybody has treated him any different. And I'm a big stickler of anybody who meets any of my children, that these are my children. Everybody gets treated the same. Everybody is the same. We're all family. So I haven't seen anybody necessarily treat him different, at least not in front of me,
Mhm.
which I'm very grateful for. Everybody has embraced him since day one. Like when we were in the hospital after he was born, everybody came to come see him, give all the love and hugs and, everything
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, that's good. Were you worried somewhat that you wouldn't have that mother-child bond with him?
So when he first came
Mm.
back after we left the hospital, and they're like, okay, here's the paperwork, you signed it, this is now your child, you're leaving a hospital with this child. I had a lot of difficulty in the beginning trying to bond and trying to find that maternal bond. It wasn't that I didn't love him or any of those other things. It was just this disconnect of, okay, I didn't have the 9 months of him growing in my stomach. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the doctor's appointments from when we met his birth mom until he was born. So I got to hear the heartbeat and have that bond with her and that closeness with her. So
Mhm.
now it was like, okay, now I need to try and make this bond with this child. And it was just very hard for me between trying to bond, social workers coming into the house to still do their checks to make sure everybody was safe. I had so much anxiety and trying to now navigate, okay, now I'm a mom. What does this look like with everything else I have going on? Oh, I have to adjust this in order to be able to do this for my child. It was a lot that went on, but what I had to do, and I think the moment it clicked for me, is when he was like 2.5 months, the two of us together came down to Florida for like a week. And it was just the two of us having to go through everything. And after that, I was like, oh yeah, you and I, we click. We're here. We understand each other now. I'm
Yeah.
understanding you. We're making this bond. You are my son. And from there, we're kind of inseparable.
Did you notice that he kind of was having the same struggles trying to connect with you also during those 2.5 months?
Um, I don't know. I think I was just so much in my head, knowing that there's people coming into my house to continue to see if I'm a fit parent for him. And so worried that I would say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or even if he maybe accidentally scratched himself, that the social worker would be like, oh, you've abused this child, we're taking him. I think I was so
Right.
wrapped up in all the other things that were going on around me that I wasn't even necessarily focused on, well, is this baby taking to me? Or am I just sitting here like, no, this house has to be spotless because they see one little
Mm,
thing, they're going to say we're not fit, or if we do this or do that. And yeah, it literally took that trip to get out of our environment, to be away from everything, to be like, no, we're fine. I'm doing a great job.
yeah. Did you notice maybe any trauma that due to his relinquishment, like maybe excessive crying or maybe didn't want to be held, or maybe even just kind of a disassociation, like when they're like unusually really quiet. Did you notice anything like that?
So sometimes I find myself sitting and I don't like comparing because I'm like, every child is different. But after with my daughter and going through the different stages after I had adopted my son, everybody's like, okay, well, what's the difference? Like your question, like, did
Hmm.
I notice any of these different things?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I honestly don't think I noticed any of it. Now, could it be because, like I said, there
Yeah.
was so much going on, these people coming in and out my house and all these other things? Maybe that could have been a reason why I didn't necessarily notice if
Hmm.
there was anything relinquishing and things like that. But my son never, since the day he was born, he never has seen his birth parents. So they chose not to see him after he was born.
Hmm.
And that was their choice. That was fine. A few days later, birth mom did change her mind and she did want to see him for a little bit, which she was like, but I want you to be there. I just want to be able to put a face to the cry
Yeah.
I heard.
Mm,
But for him, I don't I don't think I noticed any of it. Even looking back on, was there excessive crying? This have been something from not having his birth parents or not having that natural person or that heartbeat that he's been used to hearing as he was growing? And honestly, I don't think so. My child, he was so calm, cool, and collected. Sometimes I'm like waking up and I'm like, are you okay? Like, you're not crying. Is there something else that you
yeah.
need here?
Sometimes, yeah, that can be the case too, that they're
Hmm.
unusually quiet or, like I
Yeah.
said, kind of disassociating. Um, so your son's always known he's adopted then. Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
that's great. Um, and how will you feel if your child wants to suddenly know his biology? Like, how would you handle that?
I'm open to it. I've always been open to it. He has other siblings. He has, of course, other grandparents, other people who love and want to know him and things like that. I am open to it. I feel like the more love, why not?
Hmm.
But I also know that I don't want to push something that other people aren't comfortable with. So, when the time is right and they are open and willing to say, hey, you know what, we are ready this time to meet him and see him and things like that, I would do everything in my power to be able to help that occur, help him get to know his other siblings, help him get to know his birth parents as much as either of them want to, and know that
Yeah.
I'm here as a support if he chooses that, hey, can you help support me in this area? Knowing that I'm not sitting here and nobody else is trying to take over what
Mm-hmm.
the relationship I've built with my son up till whenever that time is, just knowing that this is another part of his life that I'm not able to be able to give him all the answers, all the things he wants, and to allow him to have that open access or open communication to be able to ask those questions, get to know them, and different things like that.
Yeah, I bet, like you said, when you were younger and you were watching all those adoption shows and stuff, it probably kind of educated you a little bit on some of this stuff. It sounds like, because a lot of adoptive parents go into the process and they don't know about adoption trauma, or that they might want to find their biology someday, and they can take that personally, like, what did I not do that you need to find, this other family? And it really doesn't have anything to do with, the adoptive family, but totally understandable that they would feel that way. But I think probably you kind of educating yourself through those shows probably kind of helped you navigate this a little bit with your son. So you talked about a little bit how you were kind of scared when the social workers would come to the house and do checks. So tell me what fears you did have as an adoptive parent that maybe we don't think about.
Yeah, I was really scared that one day they were just going to come and take my child away and just say I was not a fit parent. And it goes into those things of, and when I think about it, I'm like, oh, wow, this was my maternal instinct as well, because any mom has these worries of, hey, is my child okay? Is somebody going to say my child is not okay? Or having these excessive worries. Um, but for me, I although I watched the shows didn't really sit there and tell you the process.
Hmm.
And everybody's process is different. So knowing with her coming in, and she was great. She was wonderful. She was very open, honest, told us the whole thing, walked us through the whole steps of everything. Like literally from the time we said okay to when we were approved to be able to adopt him, it was like a month and a half was how long the process went. It was pretty quick
Wow.
and things like that.
Yeah.
But we got approved literally the day before she went into labor.
Oh gosh.
So they were very open with us and let me know everything and different things like that. And I have a mental health background, so I'm a mental health counselor too, and worked with adoptive parents and children who were adopted. So in my mind, logically, I knew there was nothing wrong.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, like I tell everybody, we're still human. We
Yeah.
have our fears. There's all these different things that go on around us. So I was allowing myself going through the process and having him of allowing myself to realize that, hey, you are not the professional in this position. You are the mother in this
Hmm.
position. Allow yourself to stay in your mother, I don't want to say role, but in that lane to be able to take in what you can take in, be able to be vulnerable with yourself to an extent. Try and find people you can talk to about these fears that you're having, which I didn't, which I wish I
Yeah.
would have. But of course, once again, it's that fear of, hey, I'm having these worries. Hey, I'm thinking these things. If I tell the social worker these things, is she going to feel like I'm not fit to be this parent? Which is the
Yeah.
same fears that mothers who give birth, they have fears too in telling their doctors or going to talk to a professional about what they're feeling and their fears because of that fear of somebody's going to say they're not fit and take their child away from them.
Yeah.
So, although I was being very vulnerable with myself and understanding where I was, I'm still having these same fears because I'm like, not everybody is as open minded as I am with my clients when they come to me and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's going on. Other people, you could tell you think it's the right person, but they're going to take it the right way, and your
Hmm.
child can be taken away from you.
Yeah.
So, although I was trying to stay in my, hey, my mom of this is how I'm feeling, being vulnerable, the logical part said, hey, you should talk to somebody. But the logical part also said that, hey, you do also know if you express this to the wrong person, whether it's a social worker, they could take your child away. Whether it's a family
Yeah.
member, they could say, well, you chose to go down this path of adopting. We told you you shouldn't do this. Now you have to sit in whatever you're feeling. So it was like
Yeah.
I'm just in this place and I just have to almost like swallow it to just be able to hurry up and get through this process so that I can get to a point where I can at least breathe because somebody's not coming into my house every month doing an inspection. I mean, I
Yeah.
say an inspection, and in my head, I really thought it was an inspection where they'll be like undressing him, checking him head to toe to make
Oh
sure
my
there's nothing
gosh.
wrong. But that's not
Yeah.
what happened. But in
Okay.
my head, that's what I'm
Good.
thinking.
I know. That's what it does sound like.
Yeah. In my head, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I watched all these shows and did all these things. Yes, I work with these families and different things like that. But I feel like unless you're really in the situation and you're going through it, you don't necessarily know the full story. And at the end of the day, my story or what I've gone through is a lot different than what the next person has gone through being an adoptive parent.
Yeah. Sounds super isolating, and I think birth mothers they go through postpartum depression sometimes, and that's kind of being accepted now. So, they can go to their doctor and say, "Hey," and not have that fear. But I could see
Mhm.
as an adoptive parent, you doing that, that's like a whole different scenario. So what did you do that helped you? Were you able to talk to anybody, or what advice would you have for other adoptive parents? Because I mean, I'm sure you're not the only one that's, struggled with that.
Yeah, so for me, what I found was writing helped me a lot. I can't necessarily talk to other people, but writing is a great way for me to have a conversation with myself. So just allowing myself to write out how I was feeling and what's going on. I shredded the paper because I still had that irrational fear that somebody would see it, but at
Mm,
least writing it down and getting it out so that I'm not holding on to it. But some advice I would tell other birth parents and adoptive parents in general, as you're going through all these things, is try and find a support group. There's so many now that I found way after the fact of
mm,
support groups in different places of individuals who are in the same position you are. Of course, everybody's story is different, but to be in a space with other people who have that same shared experience and are probably feeling the same way as you, or they're bringing something up that you didn't even think of, but you're really realizing, oh, I experienced that too. Oh, I didn't even realize that this was going on. Just having this group, having this place where you can sit and talk is really great.
yeah. So when you went through the adoption process, it sounds like it went pretty fast, but did you get any guidance or therapy, you know, um, any on parenting an adopted child or anything, any education?
Um, so in the process, it did go fast. So if I'm going back to remember it, um, the education, and I can't remember the classes or whatever it was, but there was some online, I think it's called like adoptive learning or something. I can't remember what
Mm-hmm.
the program is called, that we had to go on there and take a few of their different classes on there. Um, Honestly, I don't even remember what was on there, but I know it was like your list. Hey, you need to go on here and take these three classes on here. It was just part of the list of things we had to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And going through the process, did you notice anything that, or experience anything that made you think that the system could be improved in some way or shape or form?
Um, I feel a lot of things can be improved when it comes to it. For me, I felt that my son's adoptive mom didn't get the support that she needed.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, like I said, my phone was open always for her to be able to contact me or tell me, but also I understand she was going through a grieving process too.
Hmm.
Um, Eventually, she was able to get some help that she did need in her end. So I will say that that's one of the things I wish was um,
Yeah.
improved, to be able to give
Hmm.
that support, more like a wraparound support for birth parents. But I'll also say the same thing for the adoptive parents too, because I feel like at least from my experience, we were here, you guys had all these, you need to do this, checklist, checklist, checklist,
Mhm.
checklist. Then we sit the hospital, the amount of hours, amount of hours we have to stay there per our state. And then, oh, here's all this paperwork again for you. You need to sign this, sign this, sign this. And then, okay, well, boom, you guys are gone. We'll just come check on you once every month to make sure everything's okay. And then I'm just looking like, so you guys just giving us a baby? Like, we don't know, things like that. So I guess it
Mhm.
also goes back to your question about classes. Like, new moms choose if they want to go to these birthing classes and parenting classes and all these different things to help them with their babies. It'll be great if there was something almost like that for adoptive parents. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know, and this is the weird thing about this place and this imposter part of it,
Mhm.
of would it still be okay for adoptive parents to be able to go into the same classes as women who are currently pregnant taking the classes? Because, of course, you're going to see that we're not pregnant. People are going to look at us differently and say, well, why are you here?
Yeah.
But being able to still have that same support of this learning and understanding and all this other stuff. I mean, now I understand that you can have a doula as an adoptive parent. I didn't know that. It took a while later of me going through different processes and learning that I knew, oh, this is an option. This is something out there for us. I didn't know this.
Mhm.
But being able to have these resources and things out there for us to be able to know, and also being able to have, like I said, that wraparound services or wraparound care for the birth parents to help them in their own transition after they give birth.
Yeah. There's so much education. I mean, there's the general stuff like you're talking about that a parent needs to know with any baby, taking home any baby. But then there's, a whole nother layer when it's an adoptive child and kind of the awareness that you need to have, and how to deal with some of that, even into the future, not just as a baby, but as that child grows. I really feel like there should be some ongoing therapy for, all legs of the triad,
Yeah.
if
Hmm.
needed, that should be paid for. Was your adoption through the county or?
No, so I paid for it. It was private.
So it was private. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just feel like the education piece is really lacking there. Because I think people just think you take home this baby and uh it automatically just fits right in and that's
Hmm.
it. We're all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So in your profession, you said you help clients see that society's definition on what a traditional family looks like does not have to be their definition. So talk about that a little bit and how have you redefined what parenthood looks like for you?
Yeah. So society plays a role in a lot of things we do, parenting, life, everything. And I found once I became a mother and trying to navigate all these things of what society is telling me, what I've heard culturally, what I've learned in textbooks, and trying to put all the things together, I had to sit and say, these norms don't work for me, and be able to take a step back and say, I'm trying to do things based on what this person is saying, the textbook is saying, that is saying, but it's causing me too much anxiety as far as what I'm doing, and it's causing issues within my own maternal bonding and all this other stuff. So I had to sit back and say, well, what does it look like for me? So, of course,
Mhm.
my story starts with my oldest child is adopted. And then from there, I gave birth. And then after that, my third child, I ended up losing to a miscarriage.
Mm.
So parenting and what my family and what parenting looks like to me is a lot different. So when I tell people that, hey, you can redefine what that looks like for you, it's the fact of we're going and following these societal norms, what everybody wants us to do, and all this other stuff, which is great. It makes things flow in certain ways. But as we've seen, some of these societal norms are kind of outdated, so to speak, meaning that now need to look at what things look like today. There's a lot of families that are comprised of so many different legs, layers, and different things, and that's perfectly fine. It does not have to be that traditional, was it mom, dad, 2.5 kids, they're all birthed from the same parents. It's
Yeah.
looking different. There's stepchildren, there's adopted children, foster children. There's so many different things to it, but that doesn't change. And those labels does not mean that you guys aren't a family. You guys aren't strong and don't have that strong bond.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tell people to redefine parenthood, I'm saying it's great, all these things, but what is it that you want out of this journey? Where is it that 10, 15, 20 years from now, you would like that relationship to be with your children? Because it's great. Our parents did a great job, don't get me wrong, but we also know what we lacked.
Yeah.
So why continue that same cycle?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, taking a step back and looking at it and saying, you know what, this is what I value. This is what I want out of this. And this is what I would like to have out of this. Because I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but to start approaching things differently based on what you value within your family unit.
Yeah. And you were talking about that you're a therapist and that you see adoptees and other triad members. So in your practice, what are some of the common issues that you see when it comes to adoption and the clients that you're seeing?
Oh, I don't know if there's anything common. I feel like every time I feel like, okay, I've got this in the bag, there's a new client coming in, I always get thrown left on, oh wait, I haven't approached this part yet. But I think it goes back to, so if I say from the parenting aspect of it, I think it goes back to the question you asked, like what is missing? What things should have been part of this process? Is the fact of we feel like we've conquered one thing of getting past the process of the adoption, then it's, oh, we have a newborn, our whole family dynamic is changing, we have to figure this out. And as they're growing, there's different things that we're encountering and not understanding. I don't want to say because genetically we're not the same, but of course, we know that
Yeah.
genetic play roles in different behaviors and different things like that. So we're going through this journey not knowing what's coming up next at all, of not understanding and trying to constantly relearn what's going on with our children and things like that, which of course birth parents go through too, but it's a little different when you're an adoptive parent because you never know what's going to come up medically or anything else because not all adoptive parents, like I don't know my son's genetics, all that stuff. I don't know that information.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get the information? Can I ask for some of the information, which I have, if there's something I've needed to know for a doctor, things like that. But some parents aren't able to contact the birth parents or things like that. So they're kind of out there lost and not knowing.
Yeah.
And then I'll say from the children's perspective, it varies. Some people just trying to understand their identity and who they are. Some are just trying to express themselves the best way they know how to express themselves with the information that they've been given. So it's kind of a all over the place thing of every day something new.
Yeah. So as a therapist, I just kind of want to educate the audience and see what you think. We were talking about how you felt isolated as an adoptive parent and that you didn't have anybody to talk to about a lot of these feelings, being scared of, your child being taken away. So if somebody comes to you as a therapist and wants to talk to you about that kind of stuff, is that something that you have to report? Because I know you're a mandated reporter, but it's not like it's child abuse or anything like that. But is that something that you would have to report, or can somebody come to you having those struggles and feel safe talking to a therapist?
This is where it gets a little yes and no. So I always tell everybody I work with that, hey, think of me almost like that best friend who can't tell secrets unless you're going to harm yourself or somebody else. I was like, but I don't want you to be afraid to tell me if you're having those thoughts and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the thing of my fear and things like that is the fact of you can tell your therapist that you're having these thoughts and feelings. Now, there's different things your therapist can do. There's different assessments and different questions that we can ask you to just see where you're at, to see, okay, are you at a point where maybe you just may need to go and see a psychiatrist, sorry, to get some
Mm-hmm.
medication? Do you need to go into, maybe you need to go to the hospital for a little bit to relax, or maybe you just need a vacation. So it's a weird thing of yes and no. Are we mandated reporters? Yes. In my years of doing it, have I had to report anybody? No.
So maybe just be kind of, well, I guess if you take these, an assessment and it shows that you need some help that maybe you didn't know about, then maybe that's what you need, and your child needs as
Hmm.
well. So, yeah, it is kind of scary though. I can see,
Yeah. But I'll
wondering how
also
much you
say
should
though,
share and not share.
yeah, but I'll also say though that I've given individuals assessments and their scores are really high, meaning, hey, you need some help. But I've just pointed out to them that, hey, this is what this is showing for you. I don't think you're realizing where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I've been told by my clients that have come to me that have been recommended by their doctor to come see me that are freaking out because their score is high. And I sit and we have a discussion. I'm like, yeah, your score is high, but you're not at the point where I believe you need to be in a hospital,
Mm-hmm.
medicated, or things like that. I just think you just need to change the way you're going about things to
Yeah, you
calm
need some
yourself down.
tools. Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
need some tools to help you out. So, what are some misconceptions about adoptive parents do you think that are out there that maybe you could talk about? Just seems like recently in the last few years, adoptive parents have kind of become the bad guy. And it's can be a very difficult place to be in, kind of judged and things like that. So, what are some misconceptions that you would like to kind of address?
Mm, I don't believe that adoptive parents go into adopting just to take a child away from their family. Um, I feel that depending on everybody's different situation, that they go into it. Well, at least I'm hoping all of them. I can't put everybody in the same box, but
Yeah.
they're going into it with a open heart and wanting to help somebody in whatever way they were wanting to help this child. I know my personal story. Yes, I wanted to adopt, but I wasn't at the moment where I'm actively seeking adoption. It
Hmm.
came to me. Um, but I feel that we just need to continue to have these open conversations. We're hearing the stories of adoptees as they're older, of how they felt and things like that. But it'll be great to also hear the other side of their adoptive parents or their birth parents on hearing what they went through and things like
Yeah.
that. Not to pit people against each other, but there's always, three sides to every story, your side, her
Hmm.
side, and the truth. But just to be able to have like your platform and you inviting adoptive parents to come in and talk about our experience and things like that. Just continue to have the space where we can talk and express ourselves so that, I mean, it may not change us being the bad guys because people have their experiences. And of course, one bad apple can spoil a bunch, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But at least to be able to hear other people's stories and hearing what occurred and what they did. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm a perfect parent because I'm definitely not. But just to be able to hear from us so that we can say, hey, this is our story. This is why we went this way and different things like that.
Yeah, I just think the education piece again is so important. And I believe you when you say like adoptive parents don't, that's not their goal is to break up a family. You know,
Mhm.
that's not why they go into this adoption process, but just the education piece of that there was loss at the beginning, like you said, the birth mother and the child, so that you're educated on that and can address those things. I wish these agencies and things would really get into that a little bit more so that adoptive parents are aware if they see some of these signs in the adopted kids, that they can and also have some resources for them, to be
Yeah.
able, like I said, some therapists or something like that they can
Hmm.
send these kids to adopt that are adoption informed. It's super important. Doctors don't ask when you go on an intake if you're adopted, and a lot of that stuff can affect your health, mental health, physical health, So it's really good to have professionals that are that know about adoption and can help with that. So we were talking about redefining parenthood a little bit. What about you? How did you redefine parenthood for yourself?
So the way I do parenting is a whole lot different than at least anybody I know. It's a lot different than what I grew up with. Um, I really value my children having their voice heard. I believe that I don't have to agree with what you say, but I can try and understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So keeping this open dialogue between me and my children, people think I'm crazy about it. They're like, well, when they get older, they're gonna do all these other things. I'm like, that's fine, but I like to cultivate a thing where my child knows that they can talk to me and we can have this open dialogue so that, you know, if you feel like, you can talk to me, you can also express yourself to anybody else, stranger, anybody else all around, and not thinking adults is, oh, it's an adult, I have to just listen to what they say.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then we just go about things differently. Like, I'm open to teaching and educating my children in whatever way that they need the education. So that may not be in traditional school. That could be us traveling the world, which we do. We travel and we go and see the different things face to face of, hey, we're not reading it in this textbook. We're going to go see this face to face and actually see and learn about this in this location so we can see the whole picture of it, not just, the bits and pieces that we're given.
So do you
And
homeschool?
just yes and no. So, so my son has special needs. He is autistic. So we do a mixture of a lot of things. He's currently being homeschooled, only because something happened at his traditional school earlier this year and I had to pull him out. Um, so he's currently homeschooled, but next year he's going to be going to, I call it like a micro school. So it's a lot smaller classroom, but we're using a lot of our outside and different things to learn,
Mm-hmm.
which is great.
Mm-hmm.
I went and took a day. I was like, this is wonderful. I wish school was like this when I went to school. Um, and then my daughter, she'll follow the same steps when she gets to kindergarten, of going through the same micro school learning and learning with our hands and seeing and getting dirty and stuff like that. I don't have the patience to homeschool. I really don't.
I
I
wouldn't
don't.
either.
I
I
don't. I
wouldn't
was like,
either.
I'll pay somebody to come homeschool them.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't do that. But I can take you on the adventures to go see the places, and we can all go learn about it together. But I
Yeah.
can't be your teacher every day.
Is this a
We need
private
that
school?
break.
Yeah. Is this a private
Hmm.
school?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's unfortunate that we can't get that kind of learning, in the traditional schools.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, kind of in closing, what would you like struggling adoptive parents to know?
Oh, I think the number one thing I would like struggling adoptive parents to know is that you're doing a great job. And I say this because when I think of struggle, there's so many different ways that we struggle on this journey. And as we struggle, at least for me in the back of my mind, I'm like, am I doing the right thing? But I'm not his birth mom. Is this okay? Am I doing all these things the right way and things like that? But I'm like, okay, this imposter syndrome needs to go away. And I need to realize that, hey, I'm doing a great job. We're doing a great job as parents. We're doing what we think is right. But at the same time, there are resources out there if we really need them. Like mentioned, you can go see a therapist, you can do family therapy, individual therapy for your child if needed, speaking to doctors. One of the things I really want to do for my son is get him genetically tested, just so we know, okay, here are all the things that could happen moving forward so that we can help and be on top of it if it comes up. It may not come up,
Mhm.
but it's also going to be great for him when he gets older and has to go to doctor's appointments and fill out all this paperwork to be able to know, okay, yes, I have a family history of this, a family history of that. Um, so the things I would say is you are a great parent, you're doing the best thing you know how to do currently, but also try and tap into different resources that are out there to be able to help you in the areas that you are struggling with.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Anita, and just being so open and honest about some things, and helping educate all legs of the triad on your journey and some of the things that you've experienced and learned along the way. What state are you a therapist in?
So I'm a therapist in Nevada. I am a doula. So being a doula, birth, postpartum bereavement, and adoptive doula, I can
Mm.
help all around the world. I do a lot of coaching for those who do need some coaching around if it's redefining parenthood or their struggles with their adoption and trying to figure out resources and things like that.
And you have a website. Do you want to say what the
Yeah.
website is?
So my website is udomom.com. So it's my last name backwards.com. And then if you put /links, it will be able to, on there, you can click for a free 15-minute consultation. You can schedule it with me and we can talk and see what may be best for you. Or even if you just want to talk for a little bit and get a quick resource, it's up there for you as well.
Awesome. We'll have that in the show notes. Well, thanks for coming on the show today, Anita. I really want to thank Anita for her vulnerability in expressing some of the struggles that she had as an adoptive parent and how the fear of losing her son was real and held her back from getting the help she needed. That is something that needs to change. That mindset needs to change. Those resources need to be there for the adoptive parent as well as the adoptive child. So I'm so glad that she expressed that today. That's the first time that I've heard an adoptive parent express some of the struggles and fears that they have in raising their child. So thank you so much, Anita, for coming on the show today. If you are any part of the triad or a therapist that is adoptee informed, wrote a book, whatever it is, if it involves adoption in any way or adoption has affected you in your life in any way, please contact me and come tell your story on the podcast. You can get in touch with me on my website, mindyourownkarma.com, or my email, mindyourownkarma@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you soon. As always, take what you need and leave what you don't. And always remember to mind your own karma. I'll see you next time.